This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. It's straight to the point to respect people's time, and because we know knowledge and wisdom turn to business possibility, and possibility mixed with support and action become reality. In this podcast, we discuss leadership, sales, marketing, operations, team development, quality, and finance to drive sustainable results and everlasting impact to make the world a better place. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Brandon, thanks for joining the show. Glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here and be in front of your crew.
Yeah, fun stuff. I know this is going to be an exciting episode, an exciting adventure. So you as a serial entrepreneur, would you be willing to share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Brandon Seigel. I'm a Leo. I'm a nice guy. No. Besides that, I am a serial entrepreneur. One of my businesses is called Fly High Business Builders. I'm all about incubating success. And so obviously last name Seigel, I want to fly high. How do we create your business algorithm to unlock your potential, your purpose, and your profit? And so I do it in many different segments, one of them being the healthcare sector, wellness, and education sectors as well. So I have multiple businesses all stemming from the same thing, which is how do we incubate success by unlocking your business algorithm, whether it's your employees, whether it's your profit margin, whether it's your marketing. We've got a whole ecosystem through coaching, consulting, and management, design, and more to get you from basically phase one of being an entrepreneur, whether you're just starting out or you're trying to go from 10 mil to 20 mil. We've got all different phases of success in our business model.
Love that. I have an interesting question for you. And this comes from the heart, right? So when I first got into my business and doing what I do today, I used to say that all the time, business incubation. I love that because I'm a builder too, like you, right?
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people who really didn't understand business incubation. So I'm curious for you, how many times do you have to explain incubation?
It's funny because I use it on a high level, but I have to illustrate it. And so even when I'm at, an event or whatever, I'll give them literally a gold egg and I'll say, what is that? And they'll open it and it will be my business card, which is a gold coin. And I'll say, I'm trying to create money with you. That's the bottom line. How do we do that? What is our purpose? How do we achieve greatness today? And so everything we do has a purpose. And I kind of use this analogy in everything I do. I talk about, we all want to be hopefully a vehicle of change. The ultimate successful business is a vehicle of change. And it takes fuel to get to the final destination or to multiple destinations. And so my whole goal is to build your fuel line so that you know where you're going and that you have a path.
I love that. Well illustrated. Illustration is greater than conversation. And so you just illustrated with the egg and the fuel. I love that. And I love how you answered that question. Great answers. I'm super curious to dive in more. So yeah. Question number 2, Brandon, what's the best thing about being in business? I love asking this question of people. It's different for everyone.
So for me, I truly wake up every morning to create change. And that's what it's about. My wife, there have been times in my struggles, because you always have business struggles, where I'm like, maybe I just need that 9 to 5. And my wife's like, you would be miserable. You would jump out the window. She's like, you literally are fueled by change. You love change. You're a change maker. You're a problem solver. The second you stop feeling like you're making change, you're going to drop dead. And so that's what I love about being business owners. Every day is change and every day is an adventure.
I love that in so many different ways. I would say, yes, there's a part of me screaming, yes. And then there's a part of me screaming, no. I say things like structure creates freedom, but there's a piece of entrepreneurship that is just, things are never the same. It's never monotonous. It's not like, I don't want to dog any fields. I have accountants in mind. Sorry, accountants. But that kind of business would drive me nuts. I would literally pull out my hair. I would be hairless. So,
Well, and it's interesting because I listened to your previous episode recently, which was great, of your podcast. And one of the things you talk about is like, we work to live or we live to work, like those different things. And I think it's interesting because I think each entrepreneur is a little bit different. For me, like, you could give me $1 billion, I'd still work. I love it. It's what fuels me. It's not a job. It is a job on days when things go wrong, but at the end of the day, stick me in a bubble for 2 months and not allow me to work, and like my whole everything, like, I'm not that person that will just go travel the world every day of, I'd like to travel, but I really, really, really love work. Like, it is something. And I have friends who live in like the Netherlands and different places, and their whole point is they're like, our whole life is about adventure and living, and you're stuck behind a desk. And I'm like, I see so much change in humanity in what I do. And if you can create 10,000 lives different just based on entrepreneurship, like, how special is that? It's a selfless act. It's sometimes, even though there's a selfishness in making money, but to me, if you're really tapped into that aligned purpose, it's not work. It becomes life.
So powerful. There's so many things you said in there that I relate to, and yet I can see some differences that we have too. So we have some very distinct likenesses with the entrepreneurship and its patterns. Also some very distinct differences too. I love to travel. I'm always out on the road. I love to go different places, adventure, and so it's really interesting. And I love that you highlighted that, entrepreneurs, yes, there's very systematic steps, and there's a process to this that you learn over time when you become a seasoned entrepreneur. So you're able to help others. It's about people. We're in the people business, but there's also some uniqueness, some difference, which is a beautiful thing. I love it. Brandon, we hear from other business owners, they're getting so much business that sometimes the chaos causes some overwhelm. Would you be willing to share your thoughts on that topic?
So the first thing first, I think that I love getting too much business, because when there's a demand, you get to control how you supply it. And so whether it's raising prices, changing your game, creating opportunities for others under you, pushing down. And so for me, I always go through seasonal pushes. It's very interesting. It all hits at once. And so I can literally see, like, I'll go through a $50,000 push in 2 weeks. And then I'll go 6 weeks where I'm like, hey, what's going on? And my wife will say, you always panic when you don't, because you thrive in that growth mindset. And so for me, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it go right, but I'm also about creating systems. And this is something I love about you, Brad, is you really aligned even today when we met. You're like, I've got it all systemized. Like, I'm ready to roll. Like, it's like robotic in the sense that all of the stuff that doesn't need my time won't take my time. So that when you get my time, I'm at my best. And I do the same with growth in that growth mindset.
I love it. Love that. There's no way I could love that answer more. I love it. That's great. Moving right along here so we can get to the cruxes, because I know you love delivering like actionable stuff and the real deal, and not just all about you. You shared that with me, and I appreciate that about you, Brandon.
Yeah.
What other successful business owners like yourself should be, and I don't mean to should you, but ought to be on the Unlimited Business Wisdom podcast?
So there's a company out of Florida that I work with, and I think any entrepreneur right now who is trying to get found needs to have what I call is a strategic marketing system. And so Ethan Nowitzki with Evolved Strategic Marketing out of Florida, they have created, I think, one of the best engines for like both do it yourself as well as they do it for you. And I think that's really important in today's environment is how do you get found? And I think local search in today's market is bigger than people think. And I think that having people behind you, that one, having an engine behind you, but then having the resources when needed is really important. So I think Ethan, as an entrepreneur, has an incredible journey. And I think he's got a lot to share for you, with you, him and his team.
I love that. I love how you described it. And it's right here in Florida. What could be better? That's great. I love it. Let's get to the crux of this, Brandon. Let's really dive deep here. So now I know you have a lot to share, and this question was probably hard for you. Like, What? Just a few minutes to share my wisdom. So
Yeah.
what piece of wisdom would you share with other business owners?
So I think to really get to the next stage of growth, when we talk about scale, scale happens when you have, in my opinion, the right business algorithm, the right people, and the right systems.
Hmm.
And I think right now we have a people crisis. So what I will say is we need to stop interviewing and trying to hire based on a transactional employee mindset.
Hmm.
If you go on today's Indeed post and everything's about job description, function description. And I always say, recruit for mindset and train for talent. And I think that, so when I'm posting a job, my whole interview process is actually not initially around skill set. It's around their why, their needs, their wants, their desires. What type of environment are they going to elevate? And what type of environment is going to hold them back or push them down? And how do we create change in our entrepreneurial mindset by co-creating? So every single person I work with has to have a co-creation mindset. And so I would say my strategic recommendation for today is, first and foremost, you need to post a job that is an advertisement and that taps into intrinsic motivation versus transactional job function, because transformation happens when there's three things. One is they have to be aligned with purpose. Two, they have to feel connected. And three, they must feel progress. If they don't feel like they're progressing in your business, with your business, then they're gone. And so how do we find that and create a needs, wants, desires opportunity for them where they can scale to the next level? And so from that job post, I usually do an email interview before I even do an in-person interview. I want to see how they write, how they respond, and how truly, truly transparent they're able to be. How do we tap into their authentic nature versus a fight or flight response, which is to impress? And then when we interview, that's where we start looking at how are they able to really execute in that level. So I think people's where it's at right now.
Yes. Literally, yes. So I too am an entrepreneur, and I would say, it's serial entrepreneur, and I would say that has been one of my biggest challenges is people, and especially right now where we are today, that can be challenging. I think it's a challenge for most business owners. It's one of the most challenging things we have is how do we build our business through people, right? Leadership and management and our styles and things like that. The reason why I say yes is because that's such powerful wisdom that you shared. Literally, you said a lot in a very condensed amount of time. Purpose, connection, progress. One thing you said is hire based on mindset, not
based on just skill set. So my point is character and mindset are something you can't change. Skill set, I can grow skill set. So I say train the skill set, but tap in. And even when I got my start, people were like, how did you get your start? My first job out of college, I was underqualified for. It was back when, before email, even though I seem young, it was faxing resumes. And I had a headhunter that faxed a resume and made it cut off so that they thought that they didn't get all my experience. And 7 interviews later, they hired me because I was able to sell myself and prove that I could learn, I could establish a skill set, and I could execute. But it was all about character, mindset, and passion that got me the job. Not that I had this degree or that degree, or I worked for Google or this or that. It really came down to this guy is going to do whatever he can do to make us successful. And I think that's the other thing is how are people creating with us? I said co-creation. That word us, it's not even about me. It's about us. Like it's a very lonely world if you're an I entrepreneur. I don't see I in that word. And I really think that the best entrepreneurs out there create a team. I mean, that's really where it's at. And you look at the sports analogies, like Tom Brady, he is able to bring the best out of everyone else. In my opinion, he's never had the best wide receivers in the NFL, but he's always made the wide receivers that he's had the best. So how do we bring out the best in those that we co-create with?
Yeah, I love the co-creation piece. It is it's a sign of the times that we live in today, right? And that's more, if there's deeper purpose in that when we co-create rather than, one person saying, here's what I need you to do every day. Like, who wants to work in that kind of environment, especially today? We know that there's better opportunities out there than to be stuck in a job that we hate. I mean, going back to the whole sense of purpose thing that you shared in the beginning, in the beginning of where we talked about there. What I find interesting about your saying that's more subtle is that by setting that up that way, it really is a qualification process. Just like in sales, every piece of the sales process, right? So yes, I'm a systems guy, right? So every piece of the process is really ultimately a qualification piece, right? And so you laid it out that way as well. So I have them write something at first. Well, that's going to weed out a whole lot of people, because let's face it, there's a lot of people that don't have the skill set of writing skills. So you're going to get some higher quality people. But then the next piece is all about mindset, not skill set. I absolutely love that. I just put a post out today about it's more about ambition than it is about experience, because you can't, well, I don't want to say can't, but it's, you're likely not going to teach ambition, but you can teach skill set. It's just exactly what you just said in a different way. And I love how you delivered it so eloquently, Brandon. Good.
Thank you. Yeah, the one thing I'll pair with your ambition is, what are you willing to sacrifice to achieve that ambition? Nice. Sometimes we want to have the ambition, but we're not willing to sacrifice. And like everything, if we go back to Brad's career 20 years ago, what did you sacrifice to get to where you are today? There had to be a ton of sacrifice.
The list is long.
Yes, yes. And so I think today's generation, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a co-creator, either way, you have to be willing to sacrifice something to create the greatest change.
You just tapped into one topic that's really it's very interesting. It's very interesting to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So I, like you, have paved my way through sacrifice, right? So I love it. You got to give up to go up. And I think John Maxwell coined that phrase, but it's an important one. And so when I started my first real business, like C Corp, S Corp, right?
Yep.
Not to take away from anybody that has kitchen table, entrepreneur. That's a great business too. But when I say real business, I mean like S Corp, C Corp, right? And so when I first started my first one, I literally had to get on the phone and call people. So this is pre-internet, or we're right in the beginning stages of the internet, right? And so I literally took a phone book and I just called. I called lawyers, I called accountants. I was just trying to get contracts, and I literally made, 200 calls a day for 2 weeks in order to achieve a particular result that I was looking for. And when I talk to some people, I don't want to exclude anybody, like some people today, they're not willing to sacrifice that kind of time. They don't have that kind of focus, that kind of concentration. They're not willing to do the work that it takes. And I think that there's, I don't know if we live in a different environment, if it's just a people thing, but I'd love to just hear your thoughts on, pushing forward, making it happen, like just what it takes to succeed. What are your thoughts on that, Brandon?
Well, I think first and foremost, who are your model influences? What did you see growing up? So to me, my grandfather was a product of depression. He had to buy his father's company from him. Nothing was given to him. He bought the company from his father. He bought it at market. There was I built it, you buy it. And he literally went home to home painting homes before he bought his father's paint business. So I think, and then I grew up with a grandfather that started a company called California Closets. And I saw each uncle and sibling, each child of his launch their own California Closets. And when you see that sacrifice, you start to see that like nothing is given to you in this world. And I have 2 young children, and I see what even just their natural tendency is. It's so easy for me to give to them that if I don't make them earn it, I'm creating part of the problem. And so how do we, my daughter will sit in bed and watch me respond to emails on my phone just to see how do I do what I do. And I think if you go outside and you take some soil and seeds and you plant something that you can live off of, there's nothing more fulfilling than having that control. So I think if the drive is authentic for the right reason, you'll put in the effort. But if it's all about the end result, the Ferraris, the this, the that, then you're always going to look for that multi-level marketing opportunity that sells you on the hook. I'll put it that
I love that. Great input. Thank you so much.
way.
So I'm going to throw in one more question here, but I love the conversation. Thank you very much for just your crystal clear answers and the way you deliver. I just want to celebrate you and highlight you. So you mentioned different in the beginning of this, you mentioned two different phases of business, right? So you have the new person just starting out, so startups, and then you have the more seasoned, like 10 to 20 million, right? So, and I'm curious about that. So what are the number one things, because you've been around the block a time or two, you've thrown some sacrifices out there, you've seen some clients. So what's the number one problem that you see currently? Maybe it's in what you shared in their wisdom already, but maybe it's not. So for startups, and then the number one challenge that you're seeing right now for the more seasoned, would you be willing to share those or your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think the more seasoned in terms of they get stuck in a rut, I'm being honest, is they're not agile enough to pivot. So when I see, I'll be honest, when I see a company over 5 million, I feel like they're cement, their feet are in cement. It's like, I've got $5 million I'm gambling with and I can't. I'm like, you've done something right, but if you don't create a new pivot or change, you're a sitting duck. And so how do we get out of sitting duck mode and continue to climb? Don't celebrate where you're at. So one aspect is that. The other mistake I see is people create and they hit gold and then they think they can do it again and again, and they don't evaluate the business algorithm and a new unit at a time. And I've worked with businesses that were $20, $30 million a year, sold for crazy amounts of money, and the entrepreneur goes and he tries to do it all over again, but he doesn't take a new landscape and he just flushes money down the toilet. Just because, and I always say the measure of a really, really, really successful entrepreneur is someone who can do the same thing multiple times. That's when you know there's science, and there are people out there that just everything they touch turns to gold. And so I think part of their strategy, though, is understanding how and when to pivot, when to get out, when to stay in, and they're always thinking 3 years ahead. A lot of people say focus in the present, but I'm like, the present, you can get stuck in the barrier. So that's what's happening with, I think, the big boxes. The small boxes are, I mean, no disrespect, but a lot of the times they're not willing to invest the money to get to that next stage. So they're so in kitchen sink mindset that they just keep staying there being like, well, I can't, I'm not big enough. I'm like, when are you going to take the leap and bet on yourself?
Yes. Love it. Great points on both sides. I love your experience in what you're delivering. This is fantastic. Look, I know that you and I can talk business all day. I could just tell, and hopefully everybody listening and watching can feel that energy as well. Love it. Let's shift gears. I would love to know, because I think that I'm always careful about this statement. I think I said it wrong once, but we work to live, not live to work. Right.
Yep.
And so what's the most fun vacation you've ever had? Would you be willing to share, Brandon?
Yeah. So most fun, but also most meaningful. When my daughter was 2 years old, we took my daughter to Israel, where my father-in-law is from. And we got to see every aspect of Israel, which was incredible. We got to live with his family there for several weeks. So we got to really be part of the culture. And I got to see my daughter dance with her great-grandmother at her great-grandmother's 100th birthday. So that by far was the greatest trip of my life. It really was just one to see culture, to learn, to grow. And I think being able to live, it's one thing to vacation somewhere else, but it's another to live like someone else. And I think living in these cultures, and I just met an entrepreneur that every month right now he's spending 30 days in a new country. And I just think that's so special that he's at least spending 30 days in one place to really live it, so to speak. So that's my vacation.
I love it. You just tapped into my heart, Brandon. And I mean that. So not only did you, so you didn't just pull some fun vacation, you said meaningful vacation, right? So right off the bat, you pulled something meaningful, which is completely in, look, I'm a pattern guy. It's completely in line with the whole podcast. Everything you've talked about has been purpose and meaningfulness and fulfillment. And like that just resonates from what you're sharing. So I can clearly see that about, that's who you are. That's a piece of who you are. And so even the vacation was aligned with that. That's just fantastic. And then on top of that, the whole 30-day thing. So when I've traveled, like that was the whole point for me. So you totally just spoke to my heart. It's like diving into the culture, getting to know the people, what are the customs and all that kind of stuff. That makes a vacation or a stay somewhere so much more meaningful. I want to highlight and appreciate who you are. You've been very humble, but yet very direct on this call thus far. And I just appreciate you carving out the time to be here. You literally took a chunk out of your day to give back to people and to serve. And so that shines so brightly. You're working on lots of things. You have some cool websites, multiple websites and things like that. Share with me, what's your number one initiative right now currently? Because you have multiple businesses, as you share. What's the number one initiative right now? And then after that, if you'd be willing to share, like when somebody watches this and listens to it and wants to reach out to you, how they get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So my number one initiative right now is to change the way that healthcare is delivered. And I'm just being transparent. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm incubating, but we've got a healthcare crisis, and we have clinicians, physicians, healthcare systems that just don't know how to run a successful, purpose-driven enterprise. And so for me, I want to change, whether it's how you get paid by insurance, how you market your practice, any aspect of really nurturing the growth of your private practice. I want to be your solution in helping you reach greater community and greater change of our healthcare society. So you can reach me at I'm going to give two websites. One is wellnessworksmanagementpartners.com. Go there. You'll see all about the health wellness side. Fly High Business Builders. That is my other business. And that is where we are incubating success. We're designing your future.
Excellent. And you can find both of those links right down below for your ease, because we don't want you to stop driving right now. You can pick them up later. Brandon, thank you so much. I mean it. This has been meaningful. You've shared exactly who you are, and I love your authenticity and the way you've shined. So thank you very much. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you, Brad. This has been amazing. I appreciate you.
Cheers. This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where leaders, seasoned entrepreneurs, and business owners share their wisdom. If you're looking for more on leadership, sales, marketing, or operations to drive team development, higher quality, and high-level sustainable profits, we encourage you to join the Built for Brilliance community on Facebook or reach out to us about one of our mastermind groups, coaching or consulting, or even fractional COO services. You can reach us at buildbrilliance.net/contact. We thank you for listening, for sharing the show, and appreciate your rating and reviews, as this makes more shows possible. Thanks for joining us.